G'day everyone, Vox here. Welcome back to the dungeon. I'm gonna build a nice river scene today. Or something to do with water. Maybe just liquid. We'll see. First though, let's pull out a canvas and a few pieces of off-cut foam that I've further divided into slimmer pieces. This should set up a nice bit of elevation to have our scene upon, whilst providing a pleasant area of water to figure out how to portray. So I started tearing toilet paper. But by the third cup I was mixing up, I just rolled it around my hand and hydrated it in the cup. You destroy the fibers on the stuff just fine bashing it around. Way faster. Just beat the devil out of it. And then do the same with the plaster of Paris added in, and you're good to go. I used my fingers for a bit, but I'm most comfortable behind a brush. So I used a nice big one, and a watered down PVA worked as my thinner. Helped me smooth things out and get things to move and loosen up a bit as needed. Felt very natural. Use whatever kind of things you like best though. Enjoy the process. We'll add a few stones and outcroppings and the like using some of my last bark. Getting to the dregs here. Need to go out and skin another tree soon, but it's so cold. I'm dabbling some slightly watered down PVA over top, which I think will prove sufficient to set them. We'll see. I can always superglue them later if needed. Or just add a little extra PVA over and under them, as I will. I also tried carving into the sculptor mold alike a bit, but I had waited a little long. I was able to drill in some holes to make some little fallen pretenders to watch over the build. Okay, well, that canvas didn't work so well. However, I think I can salvage most of the terrain. Looks like I'll be able to just pop this off and transfer the structure over to a little bit sturdier of a base. Ah well, it was the perfect size for what I had in mind, so I had to try. Yeah, we'll use a thick piece of foam. I've got plenty. I should just get better at cutting it. This is a bit bigger, so we'll add a few new strips of land. I think I'm gonna go try out a heat gun on this to smoothen out. Not gonna film it, as I'm gonna do this bit outside to avoid the fumes, which are pretty bad. Even it is worse, as I ended up using a lighter instead of a heat gun, as it just wasn't wanting to function in the cold. Another cup of sculptor mold slapped on to blend things out. Still not sure how this is gonna end up, but you gotta find out to learn. Okay, gonna try a water effect here of the waves coming in. Maybe this is more of a beach scene, I'm starting to think. A break, and then calm water behind. Not gonna be using epoxy, so I'm gonna have to paint the effect right. We'll see. Doing this just by brushing out watered down PVA and placing toilet paper over top, and then blending and sculpting with a brush. Smoothing extra with watered down glue. This is really fun. I highly recommend trying it. I don't know if it's gonna look good, but the process is great, so I hope it's nice. Let's get this sealed and stiffened a little further. I mix some matte Mod Podge with a Caribbean and bright red. Nice cheap paints. Just use whatever acrylic you've got with a color vaguely in the right mid-range. Then I'll just pour some Caribbean straight out of the bottle onto the rocks. Some might think this is a little backwards, making the not water blue but the water a ruddy pink purple, but I'm sure it'll make sense eventually. Splotch in a few bits of bright yellow on the rock areas for interest. It'll all come together with the oils later. I thought about trying to turn this purple on its head, but I'm embracing it. This is a sea of wine. I splotch Purple Lake over the whole area quite heavily, but also with a lot of thinner, though not much pre-mixing. That way it'll vary a fair bit. The important part is make sure that everything is getting wet. We'll switch to the faux sienna in transparent earth red and just smash that over all the stuff above water. Not worried if they mix. In fact, I'm scumbling along the transition to blend the two. Now, everything's looking pretty smudgy, and a lot of the time you'd come in with the sponge now. But I'm gonna get my same big brush loaded up with titanium white here, and just let it flow like the light out onto the terrain nice and loosely. Just dragging it across in a soft angle along the landscape. It's dramatic how fast this changes things, really enlivens the paints you've set up. It's hard to do on miniatures because the paint will still flow after you touch it for a short time, which clogs detail pretty easily, hence why you generally sponge them to make it easier to control, or at least why I do. But with terrain, it's totally fine to let it blend itself everywhere. It can on minis too, with appropriate mind. Just simply here. This is really some Bob Ross kind of painting, just embrace it. I clean the brush out, beating it out on a paper towel and a bit on my painting sweater to be honest, and then reload on the white and bring out certain areas a little more, mostly in a slashing sort of motion. I want the strokes to be kind of sharp and quick, just because it's fun though. I think the effect is working out. Also, slashed out the sea. Though for some reason, I don't keep it. Looking back, it was fine, but how it ended had me questioning a little on whether or not to turn this sea of wine into a verdant valley. I'll have to let the oils dry a bit and see. They've dried enough. Let's add back that sparkle with some more white and a sponge, just dabbing lightly to create a nice speckle effect. I have two kinds of sponges, one firmer and the other pretty light and airy. The firm sponge is good for smoothness, miniatures and such, and really gets the paint out. But for the speckly effects like this, the airy sponge really does the trick. Do this a little on the rocks as well, but the main focus was the waves with this step. I'm going to break into my little tub of tiny flower patches and stuff. Got some purple and pink flowers and a variety of little shrubby tufts. I'm gonna awkwardly put this around with a little extra PVA to make sure they stick. The oils are still wet, but I don't think it'll really matter. And I think this will help me figure out what colors I need to add still. We've got a lovely bit of light and dark contrast, but I still want to incorporate more color than just the pre-glaze and titanium white have provided. I poke in a few holes to stick some twigs from Diorama Precipi that I was gifted. Thanks, Nan. Figure this is a good place to review. They're just dried out interesting shapes, and I think you have to be quite willing to break them apart though to really get much out of them, at least at this scale. Might Frankenstein a larger tree with them sometime. Also, tossing a little craft moss into a few areas. The grass and tufts are especially good at hiding anything that snuck past to this phase. Okay, breaking out the dusts. We got Tuesday through Thursday bedtime, plus a little Wednesday evening blue. Gonna try and dye the shoreline a little strangely for this lake of wine. It's good stuff too, blood of a god. I think that goes as ambrosia in some circles. Certainly at the source it would be, for a time at least. Long enough for civilizations to rise and fall around it. Something to explore further another time. I'm using a two-sided makeup brush here. The short end I use for applying and direct stippling, whereas the longer and larger other tip is more for general blending and cleaning up.
Yeah.
Let's paint the three sides black. This is the edge of the world, so we can leave one side as it's been stained. I think that looks fine. Whole thing's a kind of disc anyways. No elephants though, I think. But this is the edge of the cup that is the sea of wine. I think it's really more the size of a lake in the scheme of things. But something in it creates a wave motion, more similar to a sea or ocean, I figure. We'll figure it out later though. Choppy water to be sure. Your boat's gonna get just as soft as you. Now, sometimes I think when I build something... By the way, I'm calling it good. I enjoy it as it is. We'll paint some stuff to put on it next time. But anyways, sometimes when I build something, I think it's really just going to raise more questions than it answers. Why is there a lake of wine? The world is a disc? There aren't any elephants? These are all good questions, and there's many more. I think that answering them is probably going to be good material to get more ideas from. Soon I think we'll talk a little bit about the source of the liquid. But I think what a port, at least a dock, looks like in it would be good as well. How has this clearly magical occurrence mutated the local wildlife into various magically drunken monstrosities? Has this delusion uplifted some kind of animal or plant into thinking? Stoned ape? What about the drunk goose? What tyrants could arise from such madness? Not saying I'll be stuck on this forever, but I don't really know the lore or backstory of this. I created it, and it created questions, that the answering of which will provide parts of the solution. Thank you everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this weird nature scene, like, subscribe, bell, tell me what to do better. I'm not too worried about that last one, but if I can fit something in while having a good time, I might. It'd just be so gritty. Ick. Gotta filter it first or something. I don't think that'd stop a sailor, though. Oh, if this and the next episode are NyQuil affected. Sorry.